Welcome back, everybody. How you doing? Hope everything's going good. And we are back to the coding and stuff, and we are going to deep. We're going to dig into the code, deep dive, and all that stuff, all that cool stuff, right? So let's get into it. Yeah. First, I need to go. I'm just gonna go full screen for the good experience. So you guys have a good experience, you know. Alright, that is beautiful. Beautiful. I'm going to tell you that looks beautiful. So, if I open Visual Studio Code, the file that we created that day should be here. It is. Look at that. Beautiful. It is right here. Now all we got to do is open up our browser. I'm going to open up beautiful Chrome. Yeah. Open up Chrome and let's go to the history, and most probably should be here. Alright, there it is. So this was it, right? 3.15 Python, latest version. Yeah. Alright. Okay, so I'm just going to open up ChatGPT on the side. It's going to help us out. This is going to be beautiful. Okay, so we were over here. Yeah, we already know from the previous video that property is a decorator, right? And it helps. What I remember is that this is a decorator, and it's helping this method to be a method and also be an attribute at the same time. This is what I remember from the previous video. And this formula, this function was calculating the what do you call the area of the circle, right? Because it's area. And you already know the formula: pi times the radius times 2. Radius, this is squared, right? And yesterday we studied about self, yeah. Here we go. Alright, ChatGPT, do your work, do your magic. So we're gonna study this part. Oh, it's going line by line. I want to study this part. The previous part has been studied already. So we're gonna go on to this part. So we've done this, right? It's gonna return, it's gonna give us the area of the circle. Okay, so now we're gonna create another class. Okay. Space in. Alright, let's take care of that. And this class is going to be called a container. Remember, this is the name of the class. Alright, and now we're going to define a new method, and this is going to be called init. And that's going to take 2 underscores. Alright, 2 underscores. And now we're going to give it some parameters. Okay, and as usual, we're passing self. And this is something new. I see inner, and with a space, there is a circle. Okay. And there is also a space before inner. There we go. This is correct now. These are the parameters that we've passed. We've already studied about self. It can, what do you call that? It can let me recall. Self can refer to an instance of an object, or it can refer to an instance of the class, right? It was something like that. And now we have to specify the return type. Remember this from the last video? This was specifying the return type. So over here, for some unknown reason, which I don't know, it says none. Well, we're gonna go with none. We will find out later. So enter. Now let me think of it. Let me think about this. Okay, so they're passing self as a parameter. All right, we've done that before. What about this inner colon circle? What is this? If it was just inner, I would understand. It's a parameter that's being passed, right? Inner. But circle is also here, and circle is the name of a class, as you can see over here. This is the name of the class. Circle is a class. And why are they passing circle in this? Why is circle being passed here? Well, we're just gonna have to find out. Hold on, let me brainstorm. So imagine this part wasn't here. That would mean inner, yeah, self.inner is equal to inner. Inner is going to refer to the instance. It's going to refer to the object, right? Inner is going to refer, not inner, self, I mean self. So inner is going to, let me just start with self. Because it's self here, self is present here, so this is going to refer to an object. Yeah, but whose object? We're in this container class, so most probably it's going to refer to the object of this class, right? Because it's going to be an instance of the class container. Or it could be, it could also refer to an object of this class. Who knows? We can learn about that later in the code. So whatever it refers to, that value is going to get passed to this function, and the inner is going to have that particular value. So let's learn about this. Self. First of all, we need to understand the function. Okay. Copy this. Tell me particularly about this part, since I'm understanding it from this point. Don't leave any point out. Go deep, step by step. Whatever happens, explain what is what, terminology, short stuff. Yeah, we know that class, this is a class, we already know that, okay. We also know init is a method, yeah. And one of these, we also read in the previous video that the decorator helps to automatically create these methods like init, and there were some more methods. So was that data class or property, or was it both? Or is that the basic function of a decorator? That is my question. Anyways, yeah, we know init is a special method as known as the initializer or constructor. It is automatically called when you create a new instance object. Okay, look over here. So these two terms are mostly used interchangeably, right? As I was using them in the previous video, interchangeably. So I could use object or I could use instance. And you can see that ChatGPT has also used them interchangeably. When you create a new instance, bracket object of the class. So instance is an object, object is an instance. So in simple words, this method is automatically called when we create a new object of the class. So if we create an object of the class container, init is going to be called automatically. Alright. What does it do? It is often used to initialize the state of the object. It is often used to initialize the state of the object by setting up its attributes. So as we said, that if we create an object of a class, then this method is automatically going to be called. But why? Because it is going to initialize the state of the object. How? By setting up its attributes. Okay, so it's going to like set it up. It was empty, so it's gonna set it up, because if we're creating an object of a class, then in it it's probably empty, does not have a state, right? So in it is going to be called automatically. It's going to set the state of the object. And how is it going to do that? Obviously, it's going to set up its attributes. Now let's see, what are the attributes. Okay, for that, it's often used to initialize the state of the object setting. Okay, init is called when you create an object. Like container is a container circle. Yeah, I was studying this later after I finished the video, you know. I looked into the code, and you can see this code, container is equal container circle. This is actually an object being created. This is the syntax or syntax, whatever, however you call it. This is the object name, I think. I could be wrong, because I don't know. This is different from Java. I remember in Java. This is Python. Anyways, I could be wrong, but according to me, this looks like an object container. So this is an object of the class container. You can see this container is the class over here, capital C. This is the class, and this could be its object. And they have passed circle in this. You know what is this? This circle is an object of the class circle. Okay, so they're passing an object into another object. Wow, this is just beautiful. Do you understand the complexity? But just don't understand the complexity. Understand the beauty of the complexity. How beautiful this is. Look. First of all, okay, we're going to get to self.inner later on. Let me tell you about this. This circle is an object, I think, of the class circle. This is the class circle. And they pass radius, because that class has a variable radius. And the radius is 4.0. Okay. They pass radius in this. And then later on, they created an object of this class, the second class. And so this object circle contains radius 4.0. That object, you see, this circle is an object, I think, and it's being passed into this. What is this? The container with small c is an object of the container with capital C, which is a class. So this class has an object container with a small c. Right? And it is being called, I think, and they're passing circle into it. What is this circle? This circle, I think, is the object. It's this circle and this circle is the same. This is the object of this class, I think. I could be wrong at some point. I don't know. Most probably, I could be right, according to my understanding. So this is an object being passed into another object. Okay, so this object now contains circle, and circle contains radius 4.0. Okay, so radius is 4.0 right now, and print container.area. Container, so they're printing container.area. So using container, we're trying to access what? Hold on. Okay, now understanding this container is an object of the class container, and container contains it contains this method, right? And using that object, we're trying to access area, but area is a method that is in the first class, which is circle. And this, they're using the second object, which is container, and that container is an object of the second class. Why would the second object be used to access a method of the first class? Is this inheritance? Like, obviously the most common solution for me, that what I would do, I would create an object of the first class, like circle. Because why? Because that class contains the method area, right? It contains area. Hold on. Hold on. I could just directly call the method here. But we're in another class. Alright, I get it now, I get it. So we're in the second class, right? Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. If I'm in the second class and I want to call something from the first class, I would create an object inside the second class for the first class. I would create an object of circle here, and then I would use circle.area because that class contains area. I would use circle.area. Why in the world do we have container.area over here? What I'm trying to tell you is that container is an object for the second class, and area is a method in the first class. I think there's something to do with this inner circle. Okay, before we study this, we need to study self.inner is equal to inner, so we can move on. Okay, self. This is a special reference to the current instance of the class. That is the object being created. The current object of the class. So self is going to refer to the current object of the class, yeah. And now, okay, self.inner. Self allows you to refer to the object itself. Yeah, we know that self can be used to refer to the object itself. An object of the class. For example, self, yeah. It's going to refer to the object itself. Okay, this is the same thing, I think. So you can access it. So if self allows you, if self allows us to refer to the object, so we're referring to the object using self. So that means we can access its attributes and methods within the class. Within the class. Okay, let's see what that means. You never pass a self argument when calling the method. So if we're calling a method, we're not going to pass self. Python automatically passes it when you create an object. Example. Container, yeah, the container is an object of this class. Circle. Here self will reference the new container object being created. Okay, now where were we? Here self will reference the new container object being created. That is container. Yeah, this is easy. This is the object. It's called container with a small c. This is the object of this class, okay? This is a class and this is an object. So self will reference the new object being created. So self is going to refer to this object. Okay, understood. What's next? Inner colon circle. This is an argument being passed into the init method, okay? This whole thing is an argument. It's being passed into the method. Understood. Inner, this is the parameter name. I get it. When creating a container object, you will pass a value for inner, which is expected to be an instance of the circle class. Is expected to be an instance of the circle class. I get it now. This is all adding up. You see this whole thing? Circle with a capital C. This is the class. Where is it? Yeah, this is the class name. Circle with a capital C. This is the class name. It's being passed as a parameter. And why is it being here? Because when creating a container object, as we've done over here, you will pass a value for inner. So we're going to have to pass a value over here when creating an object. And that is expected to be an instance of the circle class. So whatever you pass here, the first thing we're going to have to do is when we're creating an object for the container class, we're going to have to pass a value over here. And that value is supposed to be an object. Instance, object, same thing, I think. Same thing, okay? Object, instance, same, mostly. Sometimes there are some things. Sometimes. Just forget about that later on. We'll study that. So what I was saying, that if we create an object of this class, we're going to have to pass a value over here, and that value is going to have to be an object. And that is going to have to be an object of a particular class, of the circle class. Dude, I get it now. I totally get it. I totally understand this. We pass circle here, right? That's a class. So we're going to have to pass an object here that is going to be the object of this class. And that we've already created over here. You see? Circle, this is an object of the circle class. And that is going to be passed over here. I get it now. Totally get it. Understood. Okay, this is a type hint. Circle, this is, why have they done that? They're also telling that. Circle, this is a type hint. It tells Python and anyone reading the code that inner is expected to be of type circle. Okay, inner is of type circle. Alright. The type hint is not enforced at runtime, but it helps with static type checking. Example, using tools like MyPy, and makes the code clearer. Alright, I did not understand too much about that. None, this is a return type hint. It tells the init method does not return anything. Okay, I get it now. I totally get it. It's not returning anything, so it doesn't have a return type. Obviously, look, this method, the area has a return type. That is float. It's going to return something. And we've used the keyword return, right? Now this method, init, is not returning anything, and that is why we have written none over here. Totally get it. Alright now, it does not return anything. None means no value is returned. In Python, constructors do not need to return anything because the object itself is being created and initialized. So if an object is being created and also is being initialized by init, so the constructor does not need to return anything. I did not understand a bit about that. Now, yeah, so we have the basic stuff. Now we can understand self.inner. This self.inner, what is this? The first part. This is referring to an attribute of the container object being created. Let's see, where's the container object? This is the container object. Self.inner is referring to an attribute of the container object being created. Self.inner is referring to an attribute. So inner is the attribute and self is referring to the attribute of the container object. So the container object is this container object, this. And self is referring to an attribute of that object. Okay, so this object has an attribute, inner, and self is referring to the attribute. So self is pointing to this attribute, and that attribute belongs to this object. What I understand from this. Self.inner is how you store. So if let's try to make it logical. If self is referring to this attribute, and that attribute belongs to this object, right? This object. And this object is the second class, and we're passing circle into this. So this is going to contain the radius. Okay. Self.inner is how you store data inside the container object. How you store data inside the container object. Okay. Wow, I understood it. We're trying to store data inside the container object. We're not storing it inside the class. We're storing it inside we're storing the data inside the container object. So this is the container class, and it has an object, which is container with small c. We're trying to store data inside the container object. So we're trying to store data inside this object. And how do we do that? By using self. Why? Because we earlier studied that self is used to refer to an instance of an object, or it refers to the instance of the class. So it's referring, instance means object, right? So it's referring to an object. So self is used to refer to an object. Most probably. So you're telling Python that the container object will have an attribute called inner. Dude, exactly, to the point. That is what I said. We're telling Python that the container object, which is this is the container object, that object is going to have an attribute called inner. So this inner, which is an attribute of this object. I get it now. And how do we store some data in this object? By using self. So if you remove self here, it's not going to store the data inside the object. That's going to store the data somewhere else, most probably. Inner, this refers to the argument passed when the container object was created. So when we created the container object over here, inner was passed as an argument. Inner was passed as an argument over here. Okay. Well, we're obviously just we were doing this code for the first time, so we don't have the deep roots. What's going on below it? You know, like we're just going over the top right now. Okay. Right. So now the code makes sense. I'm not going to do that self stuff right now. Let me create the object. So first we need to create an object for the circle class, which is this. It's pretty simple to create an object. I've done this before in Java. Pretty simple. So, okay, the radius they're passing. So we're creating object of first class. This is the object. And we're passing the radius is equal to 4.0. Alright. The radius is equal to 4.0. Why are we doing this? Radius belongs to the first class, which is circle. And we created an object of that. Okay. Alright. Oh yeah, and that class has a method area, and that's going to calculate the area, and that area requires a radius. Oh my gosh, I do get it now. That radius is going to go into this class, and it's going to go into this area method, and it's going to come over here. And because we have self, why do we have self here? Because we know that self is pointing. It's referring to an attribute. I mean, it's referring to an object, right? And the object is over here. So this self is going to refer to circle, and this object has an attribute called radius because it has self. Dude, I get it. I get it now. And when we pass radius equal 4.0, this is going to go here, and it's going to calculate the radius. So self is going to calculate the radius. I mean, self's not going to do that. The function is going to do that. You get the story, right? We like, why do we use self here? Because we're not directly passing stuff. We're creating objects of classes. And when you store data in objects, you need to use self, I think. So self over here is referring to this object. And this object has an attribute radius. Why? Because self is being used here before the radius thing. So now this attribute belongs to this object. And when we store radius is equal to 4.0, this is going to go into circle. It's going to come over here, and that's going to get calculated. So self is going to, it's going to help in calculating the current radius. I get it now. Dude, this is beautiful. It's beautiful. You understand how beautiful coding is? Once you get a general understanding of it, it becomes beautiful. It's so beautiful. Coding is so beautiful. Now, what are we going to do after this? Okay. So now I'm going to create an object for the second class, which is container. So it's pretty simple. Just, you can change the name of the object, by the way. It doesn't matter. It matters in some cases. So now, moving on to the second class, which is container, I just created an object. I have not passed anything. Look, over here, we have self, which is referring to this object. It should have an attribute, right? And that attribute is inner. But there is an exception here. We have circle over here, which is the name of the class. So inner is of type circle. You see, inner is of type circle. So, we were reading before that we're passing circle here. And now this is a logic that we need to understand. You see, everything makes sense. Coding makes sense. So, we're studying here. Yeah, it's over here. This is an argument, yeah. This is a parameter name, yeah. Okay, so when creating a container object, which we've done over here, you will pass a value for inner. We need to pass a value over here. We need to pass a value. Which is expected to be an instance of the circle class. An instance of the circle class. Okay, I get, it's inner, right? So we need to pass something over here. Now, we know, I'm getting an understanding. We didn't pass any parameter here. We just passed self. And this is returning something. And over here, we've passed the parameter inner. So we need to, and this function is not going to return anything. We've specified that. Okay. So, let's pass, based on circle. So we're going to pass a circle object. You know what that means? If we're passing the circle object, which is an object for the first class, circle contains the radius, which is 4.0. So 4.0 is being passed here. 4.0. And inner is going to point to this container. And now if I write self.inner is equal to inner, right? If I write this, now I know that inner over here, self over here is pointing to this container. And that container It has an attribute called inner. But we also know that this we have a circle here. So we need to pass a value here, which is supposed to be an object of type circle. So we're going to pass circle over here, and that circle is going to contain a radius. So container now has radius 4.0. So self.inner is equal to 4.0. Yeah, and that is somehow going to the upper class. Alright. Some sense. It is making some sort of sense. I couldn't get a whole grip. Come on, don't hang up on me, please. Come on, don't do that. We're studying here. Come on. Okay, so I understood everything. Whoopsie, what was that? What was that? But there are some things that are not making sense for me. Like the argument passing and why return and why, etc. And why pass object circle and why inner circle column stuff. Like, try to explain it in a greater sense. Alright, so maybe now everything is gonna make sense. Imagine. I don't know, wait. Class container selection. I'm making a new type of box called container. Every container will have something inside it, but we don't know yet what. That's the circle in this case. Now let's look at your container class. Class container is like saying I'm making a new type of box called container. Every container will have something inside it. But we don't know yet what. That's the circle in this case. So this container is gonna imagine you have a box. Inside this box you can put things like toys, boxes, books, or snacks. Each box can have different things inside it. The box is a class. Yeah, okay, we can put different things inside it. It tells us what can go inside. The things inside the box are like objects. These are the actual items you put in the box. So when we create a class, we're just making a blueprint for a box. When we create an object from that class, we're filling the box. When we create an object from that class, we are filling the box with real items. Okay? Open the container. When I open the box, which is the container in this case, this thing, I want to put something inside it. A circle. Okay. Inner circle. The inner part is like the instructions for filling the box when you first get it. It tells us I need something to put in this container when you create it. The inner part is like instructions for filling the box. Instructions for filling the box. When we first get it, okay, it tells us I need something to put in this container. It tells us I need something to put in this container when you create it. Okay, self is just the me of the box. Every time we create a container, self is that specific box. Inner circle is just saying I want something of type circle to go inside the container box. I want something of type circle to go into the container box. Okay. Inner is just the name of the thing you put inside the box. The name inner can be anything, like calling the thing inside the box toy or box or book. You can call whatever makes sense, but in this case it's named inner. You have a toy circle. an actual circle object. You need a box container to hold the circle. You have a toy, an actual circle object. You need a box to hold a circle. This is a container. So you pass the circle and say, hey box, hold a circle. Why pass an object a circle? Yeah, okay. When you create a new container, you want to put something inside it. In this case, the thing you're putting in the container is a circle. A circle object has certain properties. And this the thing you're putting in the container is a circle, yeah. We're trying to put a circle. But the circle object has certain properties, like a radius and a calculated area. Alright, why use self.inner? Self.inner is saying, inside my specific box, self, there is something called inner. Imagine you're holding a box, this is your container object. Inside the box there is a toy called inner. Okay, yeah, imagine you're holding a box, this is your container object. So the object is my box, and inside the box, which is my object, there is a toy called inner. So the object contains inner, which is a toy. Self.inner is how you refer to that toy inside your box. Oh, self.inner is how you refer to that toy inside your box. So box is an object, right? It has a toy called inner inside it. How am I going to refer to that toy which is inside it? I'm going to use self.inner. This is like saying hello to my toy. This is how you refer to the toy inside your box. You see? So from this I understand that when an object, because the box is an object, right? You're holding a box, which it says here, this is your container object. So the box is an object. So box contains some sort of data, some sort of attribute. So when an object contains an attribute, and we want to refer to that attribute inside it, we're going to use self. So this is only for objects. We're using self. It's like saying, hey, inside my box I want to place this circle, the inner object that was given to me. When you use inner, you're not making a new object. The object is already being made. It is a container as a circle object. You just tell it what to do, like putting the circle into the box. I don't need to send back anything. You're just setting things up. It's like when you arrange toys in a toy box. You don't need to give anything back. You just arrange it and the box is ready to be used. Okay, circle to circle. You make a circle. Yeah, we created an object, a toy. Over here, you make a box. Okay, we created an object and put the circle inside it. Okay. You make a box and put the circle inside it. The toy goes in the box. First, you create a circle object called circle. Yeah. Second, you create a container object called container. Yeah. And you give it the circle. Yeah. We're telling the box to put the circle inside it. Okay. This puts the circle inside the container. After this, the container now has an inner toy, which is a circle. Okay. Yeah, because you gave it circles, the container should now have an inner toy, which is a circle. Yeah. If you want to find the circle inside the container, you do this. Container dot inner. This will give you the circle inside the container, the toy in the box. Yeah. I'm making a new box. It's like saying when I open the box, I want to put a circle inside it. Yeah. Inner circle means the thing inside the box should be a circle. I'm putting the circle inside the box. So that inner is equal to inner. I'm putting a circle inside the box. Okay. You don't return anything because you're just setting things up inside the box. The container holds a circle or any object. So the container holds a circle or any object. So when you call container.inner, you're getting a circle that is inside. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, makes sense now. But it says container.area in the last part. It says container.area. The issue with container.area, here's the part of the code you're asking about. You want to access the area of the circle inside the container, yes? because container over here now contains circle, and we went to by doing container.area. However, container does not have an area property. That is true. This is container, this is a class, it does not have area inside it. You can see. It only has an inner property, which is a circle. Yeah, it has an inner property. We can see that inner. And that inner is what? That is this circle. Why is that inner circle? As I said before, when we pass this object, which is an object of this class, right? Self is going to refer to this object, container. And this container contains circle. So self is going to refer to this circle, right? Because this circle is also an object. You know, this is actually making sense. Self is actually supposed to refer to this container object. But that container object also contains this object, which is circle, which is also an object. So we know that self refers to an object, right? Self is supposed to refer to an object. So if it's referring to this object, but it contains this object. So self is now going to refer to this object. So inner is now going to contain circle, right? Does that make sense? So, however, container does not have an inner property. We know that. It only has an inner property, which is a circle. The inner property is a circle. So it does make sense because it contains circles. So the inner property, so self is going to refer to the circle. So inner is now going to have a circle somehow. The circle object inside the container has an area property. Yes, we know that. This circle has an area property. How? This circle is an object of this class, circle, and that circle has an area method. So yeah, this area circle does have an area property. But the container itself does not. Yeah, container, this thing does not have area. So that's a problem. What happens in Python when you try to access an attribute like container.area, Python will check the container object first to see if it has an attribute called area. But container does not have an area attribute. Of course not. This thing does not have area. So this will raise an attribute error because it can't find area in container. Obviously. We're trying to access area, which is in the first class. This is area, it's over here. But we were doing container.area. This is the second class, and we're trying to access area, right? And this container does not have area. So that's what I was saying at the beginning of the video. We're trying to access an area, which is an attribute of the first class, but we're using the second object, right? This object belongs to the second class, and that object does not contain area. This is a big problem. So this is how the error will look like. Container object, which is this is the container object, has no attribute area. It has no attribute area. Yeah. How to fix it? What you actually want to do is access the area circle. So let's try to run this as well. But before that, we need to print this. So let's see if it gives us the error. Container dot area. Let's see if this runs. Come on already. Come on. What is this? Data class is not defined. Pi is not defined. Okay. Data class is not defined. That's another error. Alright. So yeah, guys, this is the explanation. We were just going to use container.inner.area. It's simple. When we use container, this is the object. .inner, which is this. And then .area. Pretty simple. If you use container.inner.area, what that means is that container is going to point to this inner, right? Yeah. Why? Because self is going to point to this object. and that means inner is going to have this thing, okay? And then we're going to do container.inner.area. And now it's also going to point to this, refer to this object circle, and circle contains area, right? But now inner also has circle in it, and circle has area. So now we're going to use container.inner.area. That's going to work. So well, we need to see if this works. And I'm just going to read this, and we're going to do the running part. The area is a property of the circle class. It calculates the area of the circle using its radius. This is defined like this in the circle class, yeah. When you access it. This means the area property calculates or returns the area of the circle when you access it. You don't need to call it like a method because it's a property. Oh, we don't need to call the area method, okay, because it acts like a property. Yeah, that's the thing about property decorator. It makes the method a method and also makes it act like a property as an attribute. It's a property. Python goes through. First, it looks for area in the container object, but doesn't find it. Then it looks inside container.inner, which is the circle object. Yeah. When the circle class, it finds the area property and calculates, yeah, the area using the radius of the circle. Create a circle with radius 4.0. Okay. And then create a container and put the circle inside. Okay. Now access the area. Create a container and put the circle inside. Yeah, okay. And now access the area of the circle inside the container. Access the area of the circle inside the container. Okay. This will give you the area of the circle. And also, look at this. This method is used to calculate the area of the circle. And we're trying to access the area of the circle, but we have not called the method. So this is a great thing about @property. It's automatically going to calculate the area of the circle, although we have not called the method itself. But due to this decorator, that's going to automatically make the method calculate the area. Makes sense. You see over here? You don't need to call it like a method because it is a property. It's automatically going to calculate it. Okay, now we need to fix these errors. I'm just going to tell us to fix these errors. This typically happens if the data class module isn't imported, so we just need to import it first. From data classes, import data class. Alright, so we're trying to use this property, this decorator, but we've not imported this decorator. Okay, so from data classes, import data class. Pretty simple. You know, the stuff is making sense. And now that is so beautiful. Import data class. And that should fix it. Alright, let's try to run it now. Yeah, it worked. Okay, let me tell you the output. It works now. So now we're just going to have one problem. What is that? Python not defined, that is not a problem. We can fix that. Okay. Most recent call. Line 17, which is over here. Yeah, and module. Print. Attribute error. Yes, it did raise an attribute. A container object, which is this. Container. Has no attribute area. Yes, that is true. But if we do container.inner.area, this is going to work. This is going to work? Come on, do your magic. Pi is not defined. Alright, let me fix that as well. It gave an error. Pi is not defined. I think we need to import this as well. No, we need to import pi as well. For math, import pi. Import pi from the math module. So you learned something new from here. Math over here is a module. We're importing pi from the math module. So this is a module. So we're importing pi from a module. So we need to import stuff from modules. So does that mean data class is also a module? And we're importing data class from this module? Well, it sort of makes sense. So let's put the math module This is the math module, and we're going to import pi from it. So this should fix the error. And now the area should be calculated. Yeah, it calculated the area. Errors are gone. Also, we need to understand over here is that this is an update of Python. And it's suggesting us a clear suggestion. It's a more clearer suggestion. Did you mean inner.area? Am I using 3.15? Okay, so there's this was supposed to be the error message, but that is not the error message. Why? Because I'm using over here you can see this is 3.14.0 and this is 3.15. So I need to use the latest one. Okay, not a problem. Hold on. Let me just Python versions. Download. .15, yeah, this is it. Pre-release 3.15. Windows installer. This is Python 3.15. Yeah, this is it. So now we're downloading the latest version. Hold on. This is, yeah, 3.15.0A1. Let's keep that in mind. 3.15.0A1. 3.15.0A1. Yes, this is the one we were downloading it. Alright, so let's see if it's downloaded. Yeah, it is. And I'm just going to install it. Add to path. And features. Back. Install now. Yeah. This is going to install Python 3.15, and we're going to see the latest error inside it. The error that we're supposed to see is going to give us a better suggestion, because we're studying the latest Python version 3.15, and based on that, we're supposed to get this error. Did you mean inner.area? You see this? It's giving us a suggestion. It's not giving us the direct answer, but this is going to give us the most nearest error. Because when we ran this program and we replaced this with container.inner.area, it worked. So we replaced it with inner.area. And you can see that the latest version is giving us the suggestion inner.area. Improved error messages. The interpreter now provides more helpful suggestions. This is going to give us a better helpful suggestion. So good job, Python team, the developers, the dev team, the people who write this, the people who do other stuff. Good job. You're doing a great job. This is improving Python. Great job. Yeah. So now what I want to understand, what is happening under how does this program work? The flow of the program. That is what I want to understand. Okay, great job. All errors gone. Now, I want to understand the flow of the program. Like, what goes where from start to finish. What happens, how it happens, from where to where, what stores, what, like under the hood stuff. So I understand the flow program and a clearer picture. Is this done? Alright, it's almost done. So I need to tell you guys, I'm running Python 3.14.0. That is not the latest version. I mean, that is the latest version according to Python, but there is a developmental version which we're studying. And we're studying the Python 3.15. And this version of Python is still under development. They're making new things in this, and it's so beautiful. You see this? Pre-release users should be aware that this document is currently in draft form. It will be updated as 3.15 moves forward towards release. Yeah, so most probably people are not using this. I'm using this. I mean, I'm interested in the latest stuff, like what's going on. It's so beautiful. That is why. So now, if we need to restart Python, no, it's already there. Okay, here we go. So this is 3.15. Alright, now if we try to run this now, yay, it worked. Did it work? I don't know, hold on. This is the correct form. We need to add the error. Come on, people, what are we doing? We need to add the error. We need to see the error. Alright, give us the problem, come on. No need to hurry, we just need to see the problem. And there it is. Yes, it is here. Did you mean inner.area? Did you mean inner.area? Where is it? Yeah, here it is. Did you mean inner.area? Good job, Python team. Good job. That is a great suggestion. That is definitely going to make me want to replace this with inner.area. And that is going to make the error go away. And that is going to give me the area. Good job. So we understood the program. Yeah, we understood the program. Now we just need to understand the flow of the program. You know, so that we can write our own program. We can build the logic behind the program. So for example, if I want to write a program, or if I want to build a big software, I need to understand what I'm trying to build so that I have a logical way of writing code, you know? Okay, so yeah, where's ChatGPT? Yeah. Yeah, this allows you to use the data class decorator. Yeah, we know that data class is a decorator, which automatically adds methods like init, okay, repreq to your class. It adds methods to our classes, remember, based on the fields defined in the class. I don't know what that means. For math import pi, this imports the mathematical constant pi 3.14159 up to so on, which is needed to calculate the area of the circle. Yeah. Also, previously we learned that math is a module, or module, whatever you call it. So that means data classes should also be a module? I don't know. I'm not confirmed about that. These imports just set up the tools you need. Yeah, they set up the tools you need. There's no immediate output from these lines. They just make the classes and functions available for use, yeah. No immediate output. Step 2, circle class definition. Now, the circle class is defined over here, yeah. We also have data class decorator, so that's going to set up the, later on, okay. This is defined with the data class decorator. Here's what happens under the hood. This decorator automatically generates a constructor init for the circle class, although we don't see it, right? We don't see an init constructor. It will take a radius as an argument. It will take the radius as an argument. Yeah, I see that over here. When you create a circle, it will take a radius as an argument when you create a circle object. Okay, it's making sense. If we create a circle object, it's definitely going to take a radius argument. And did we create a circle object? Yeah, we did. Did it take a radius argument? Yes, it did. So this thing is going to go back into the circle class. All right. I love this, bro. Dudes, I love this, people. This is beautiful. Coding, this is so beautiful. It makes sense. Okay. It also adds a string representation, REPR, for the circle class, which makes the object easier to print. Okay, I don't know what that is. Radius float. This tells Python that a circle, which is the class, has a radius attribute, yes, which is the floating point number, yeah, the data type. Add property on the area method. Yeah, we create an area method. It has an add property decorator. The area method is decorated. Wow, this word is so beautiful. It's decorated. I love this word. Do you agree with this? I love this word. The area method, yeah, over here, is decorated with add property. So when you access circle.area, It does not look like a method call. No parentheses. The area method is decorated with add property. So when you access circle.area, it does not look like a method call. Oh yeah, we don't need to call this method because of the add property decorator. Why? Because the area is now decorated. It's now decorated. We're decorating and making it beautiful. So we can just access it, right? We can just get the area without calling the method somehow. Okay, Python automatically calculates the area when you access this property. So if we access the area property anywhere in the class, Python is automatically going to calculate the area. Why? Because this is now decorated. We do not have to call the area method. Yeah, based on hierarchy. Okay, so under the hood, area is not a regular method. It is now a property. So area is not a regular method. It is a property. So it is a method, but it's not a regular method. It is also a property at the same time, simultaneously. It does not need to be called like circle.area. You see this? We created an object of the class, and then we tried to access the area method inside it. And we do not need to do this. We can just call the Python calls the area method when you access circle.area. We just need, if we even type circle.area, we do not need to reuse the parentheses. This is automatically going to calculate the area. I get it. Container class definition. Next, we define the container class. Okay. So this is the constructor method for the container class. Yes, it is all making sense. This is so dang beautiful. You have no idea how beautiful this is at all. This is so beautiful. This is the constructor method for the container class. This is the container class, and this is the constructor method. So this is not a normal method. This is a constructor method for this class. It takes one argument, inner. Yes, I was right about that as well. It's just taking one argument, which is inner. Okay, which is expected to be, it just takes one argument, which is expected to be a circle object. So it's going to take one argument, and that argument is going to be a circle object. Okay, so that is why we're using circle. So if you do this with another method anywhere in a code, if we pass the class name as an argument, okay, after the main argument, if we pass the class name, so that means whatever argument we're going to pass over here is going to be an object of this class. It has to be an object of this class. Self.inner is equal to inner. Inside the init method, you're assigning the circle object. You're assigning the circle object passed as inner. Okay, I get it now. Yes. What's up? What's up, dude? Okay, I get it. This is all making sense. Oh my gosh, I am so happy right now. You're assigning the circle object passed as inner. You're assigning the circle object. Yeah, this is actually the class name. But when we create the object, yeah, that's going to make sense. So when you're assigning the circle object passed as inner, you're assigning the circle object. Okay, we need to understand this. This is deep. This is so deep, guys. This is so deep. Come on, people, understand this. Inside the init method, you're assigning the circle object passed as inner. This is inner, and this is going to store this circle's object inside it. Okay, you're assigning the circle object passed as inner. You need to understand that the circle object has been passed as inner. This is the circle object. Okay, this is the circle class, and the circle. Okay. We create an object of that class, circle, but over here we're passing that as inner. And this inner is this circle. You're assigning the circle object. Hold on. Alright, so where were we? Yeah. So you're assigning the circle object passed as inner. Yeah, this is the circle object passed as inner. Is it the whole thing, or is it just inner? This is the circle object passed as inner. Yeah, circle object passed as inner. Circle object passed as inner. This is circle, this is circle object. It is being passed as inner over here. Inner circle. We're assigning this. All right, everybody. So I understood this. This is very simple. So this is, just understand this. You're assigning the circle object passed as inner. That is this. Circle object, you see? Circle object passed as inner argument. This is the circle object passed as inner argument. And we're assigning this thing, this whole thing, the circle object passed as inner. We're assigning this thing to this inner. So we're assigning this to this. What is this? This is the circle object passed. This is the circle object passed as inner. Okay? Circle object passed as inner. We're assigning this whole thing to this. And what is this? This is the inner attribute. See? To the inner attribute of the container object. Inner attribute of the container object. This is the inner attribute of the container object. How? We know that self refers to the object. Okay, it refers to the object. So self right now over here is referring to the container object because it's inside this class, right? This class has container and we've created an object of that class. So self is going to point to this object, container. And this container, it's going to this object is going to have an attribute. What is that attribute? Inner. So inner is an attribute of this object. And now we're assigning the circle object passes inner to the inner attribute of the container object. Try to understand this. Inner attribute of the container object. Inner attribute of the container object. This class has an object, which is this. And this object has an attribute called inner. Okay, so this inner is an attribute. It is a property of this object. And what we're doing is that we're assigning this circle object passed as inner. We're assigning this to this inner. And this inner is different. This inner is the attribute of this object. And this object belongs to this class. So now this circle object has been assigned to this. And what is this? This is the container object. This inner is the container object, as you can see. Inner attribute of the container object. Inner attribute of the container object. So this attribute belongs to this object. So now this container consists of this circle, which is this. Okay, this makes sense. So now in simple words, this object now has this object, meaning container now has circle. Why? Because we passed the circle object as an argument over here. And then later on it got assigned to this inner. This is different. So this thing got assigned to this. Okay, this inner is different, this inner is different. So we created a circle object over here, which is this class. We created an object of this class, which is this, alright? And then we passed it as an argument in this function. We passed it as an argument over here. And what do we give the name to this object over here? We passed the circle object as inner. We passed it as inner. And then it got assigned to this inner. And this inner is the attribute. This inner is the attribute of this object, container. Why? Because this is a container class and we created an object of that class. And then we used self inside it. So self is used to point to the object. And this class has an object called container. So self is going to point to this object. Okay? It's pretty simple. And this object has an attribute called inner. Okay, this object has an attribute called inner. And then what we did was we assigned this circle object to this. And since this belongs to this object, okay, so that means container now contains circle object. It now has been assigned the circle object. Because that is what I said in the beginning. We're assigning this to this. So that means this goes inside this. And this belongs to this, which is the container object. So container object now contains the circle object. Look, container object now contains the circle object. But we do this part. Yeah. So now everything makes sense. Okay. Yeah, we assign this to this. So this thing, circle object, went inside this object. So this object contains this object. Yeah. Anyways, let's just finish up. And finally, if we try to print container.area, we've already done this. We've already done this. If you try to print this, it's not going to work because container is an object, right, of this class. And this class, this class does not have area. It does not have area. Area belongs to the circle class, the circle. So this is going to give an attribute error because area is an attribute of the circle class. And we're trying to access it using the object of the container class. So this is an attribute error. So in order to access this, what we need to do is container.inner. We know that inner has been assigned the circle object. So inner contains this circle object. So it contains this class's object. It's going to have these properties inside it. So inner has all this stuff. Area. It has area. And then we can write container.inner.area, and that's going to work. So I hope you got the point. I understood this. Okay, nice work, Python. Nice work. This works. Okay, so now the most important part is we're going to try to write this program ourselves. Because that is the most important part. We need to ideate. We need to formulate something. We're trying to calculate the area of a circle. Okay? We're going to use objects. We're going to use return types. It's going to be fun. So first, I'm going to create a class. Just name it class A. And then what we need to do is that class is going to have an attribute called radius, right? And that radius is going to be a floating point number. Class A. Why am I getting an error over here? Let me see. Alright. Tell us about the error, please. Why am I not getting... Tell me about the error, dude. Problems. Expected colon? Radius? Hold on, what am I doing wrong? Class circle. Radius. Okay, there's a colon of the class. Oh gosh. Also, there's a data class operator. Yeah, that's going to help us with creating the, automatically creating the, what do you call that? Automatically creating the init method and some other methods. It's automatically going to do that. So otherwise we're going to have to manually create the init method, and we don't want to do that. Okay. Also, there is a spacing problem. Hold on. This is going to give us an error. Okay, it's going to work. I still need to understand how spacing works in Python. Alright. So now we have an attribute radius. This is going to hold our radius, whatever we pass to it. Yeah. I'm thinking. This is going to hold our radius, so we know that radius is equal to pi r squared, right? So we need to make a formula. But we're going to do that in a function, inside a function. So we need to define a function, or I'm going to call it area. This is going to calculate the, the area of the circle. Define area and the area. Any parameters? Well, I don't know. Don't need any parameters for now. But we do need a return type. This is going to return something, okay? It's going to return something. And the return type is going to be float. It's whatever answer it gives us is going to have a point inside it. And now let's put the formula pi times radius squared. So times 2. Pi r squared. It is times 2. So r squared means like radius being multiplied 2 times. So if it was just 1, I'd just write type 1 asterisk. But it's like it's going to be multiplied 2 times, so 2 asterisk. Makes sense, right? Also, I'm missing something over here. Alright, the colon. I keep missing the colon. Okay. Okay, so this formula is going to calculate the radius. And now I'm just going to create another class, B. And I'm going to define a function. Also, but before that, I need to put a decorator here called property. And why am I doing this? This function inside it does not have to act like a function. I mean, it does have to act like a function, but it's not going to be a regular function. It's not going to be a regular method. It's going to be automatic. It's also going to be a property at the same time. Also, did I put the property in the correct place? Yeah. Oh, no. This is a big mess. This is a big mess. This is supposed to be over there. That's going to calculate the area over here. Okay. Property. Alright. Now I need to define a function over here. And why am I doing this? Yeah. Any parameters? We will go to self later on. Yeah. So, before I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 objects. One for class A. I'm going to call that object A is equal to A. And I don't need to pass anything. I've created an object for the first class, which is class A. And now I'm going to create an object for the second class, which is class B. Object B is equal to the name of the class and then this. Alright. Since I've created an object, right? Now, I'm going to pass the object, right? I'm going to pass an object over here. Wait, hold on. Enter. Before that, enter is equal to enter. Makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass, hold on. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm passing the A object. I've created an object A over here. This object belongs to the first class, which is A. So I've created an object of the first class, and I'm passing it as inner. I'm passing it as an argument. I'm passing it as inner, and I'm assigning it to this inner. And this inner is an attribute of this object, right? How? When I use self. So I need to pass self here as well. Now this makes sense. Need to put a column in there? Yes, it makes sense now. Alright. Let me just import the 2 modules. Import data classes from data class. What am I doing is the opposite way. Hold on, this is messed up. Hold on, it did fix. Yeah, it's over here. Oh my gosh, I got it all wrong. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. This is all wrong. Import from data classes, import data class. And then it's going to give me a pi error, so I'm going to import from math, import pi. So that gets rid of the errors. What's this problem over here? Still have a problem. Is it a capital P? No, it isn't. Oh, I also need to return this. I forgot. Return. I forgot about the return part. Come on. Do I need to add a colon or something? What am I doing wrong over here? Hold on. So let me try to make some logic over here. So I passed, over here, I passed the object, the object of class A as inner, and that object is going to be assigned to this inner. Okay, so this inner now contains the object of class A, so it contains area. And this object, this inner is an attribute of this. Not A. This. This inner is an attribute of object B, because self is referring to the object of the current class, which is class B. Class B has an object B, right? And this object B has an attribute inner. So object B now contains object of class A. So in order to do that physically, I need to put that object in here. But what is that object going to be? It's obviously going to be A. Yeah, it makes sense now. Look, I'm passing the object of class A as inner as an argument. And then I'm assigning it to this inner, and this inner is an attribute of this object B. Okay, so object B belongs to class B, and it now has, this object now has, this object has an attribute inner, okay? And that attribute contains the object of class A. So now object B contains an object of class A, which is this. Now it makes sense. Now what's left is the first part. Yeah, I didn't mention the self. So self is referring to the object of the class, which is object B over here. And object B has this attribute, etc., etc. You get the whole story. And now it's time for this part. Okay, so now we need to actually give it something, right? We need to calculate the area. In order to calculate the area, we need to give it a number. So we need to, how do we know? Do we have to pass something here or something or not? How do we know that? Well, in this function, we are not passing anything, right? I just I just wrote self. You know what self is. Self refers to the object of the class. So self over here is referring to this object A, because class A has an object A. So self is referring to this object. And this object contains nothing right now, right? So we need to give it something. So I'm going to give it a radius is equal to 4.0. Now this self, right, this self is pointing to object A. And this object A belongs to class A. But it does not have anything. Actually, now it does. It has radius 4.0. So now this object is radius 4.0. So self now has radius 4.0 as an argument. So now, in this function, self now has radius is equal to 4.0 as an argument. But before that, before reaching the function, this object, what I think is, this object is first going to go into this class, right? And then in the class, it's going to get the radius, which is equal to 4.0. And then it's going to reach the function. And once it reaches the function, self is going to contain 4.0 because obviously it's referring to this object. So 4.0 is being passed in this. And then it's going to enter into the function. But there's a problem. This radius is what? What radius is this? We know that we're working with objects and we're storing data inside objects. This is an object. We're storing data inside it. So this is not gonna reach this radius directly. We need to use self. How is it gonna know which variable it needs to reach? That's where self comes in. So if I don't use self here, what's gonna happen? Something else is gonna happen, obviously, because this radius, look, this is what I'm trying to understand. This radius is a variable. This is a variable, okay? So I think in a previous video we did study that if we're storing data inside objects, and then we were trying to access them in some functions, we need to use self, right? If we're using the object, of course. So for example, if we were not using the object, right, then we could work with this function without self. But since we're working with objects, we're storing data inside objects. So we need to use self over here. So once it reaches this function, it's going to contain 4.0. And self, what is it going to point to? It is going to point to object A. And object A contains radius equal to 4.0. So I need to add self here. So it knows. So 4.0 enters this thing. Alright. It enters this. And then it's going to automatically calculate the area. But we need to print. We also need to print the stuff. Yeah, so what should I write here? What is going to print? Hold on. I need the area. You know, I can just directly write a dot area. That would work. That would work as well. And we have a couple of errors here. In class A, syntax error expected. I'm having a syntax error somewhere. Self.radius times 2. Is it because this? I think it is the indentation spacing. It's a spacing problem, yeah. Now it should work. Property object at this. So it didn't give me the area. But if I use a.inner.area, this gives a has no attribute inner. Sorry. B. I'm in B. Oh, I made a mistake. I'm supposed to. No, this is not a mistake. This is okay. Oh, I made a mistake over here. I was supposed to pass an object of class A. Object A, okay. This should work now. Hold on. What? It was supposed to work. Where did I go wrong? This is supposed to work, guys. Come on. Yes, circle the first object. Oh, I forgot the return type. This is not returning anything. Maybe this should work now. I totally forgot about the return type. It is still giving me the same error. Hold on, let me understand this. Maybe it is indentation. Probably an indentation problem. B has no attribute enter. Huh. This is probably an indentation error. Well, let's ask ChatGPT. What? Oh my gosh, I forgot. I'm using the class name. What? Dude, come on. I was supposed to write object B. And why am I using the class name? I was supposed to use an object name. Alright, I get it. Yeah, there it is. This is correct. And now, if you want the old error, you can just type this. This is going to give us the old error. It's not? Hold on, this is supposed to give us an error. This is not giving us an error. No, 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 this is correct. This is correct. This is not supposed to give us an error. I'm accessing area, which is a method of class A. This is correct. This is gonna give us the old error. Yeah, because this is an object of class B. There it is. Did you mean inner.area? Yeah. Okay, everything works now. Yeah, okay. I understood most of the stuff. We just need to work on the logic building. Like, why are we using this? Why are we using that? There's still a lot of stuff we need to understand in this, you know? There's still a lot of stuff. Well, this is it for this video. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned a lot. And this is the function, this is the whole code. You can pause the video, understand it. It's pretty simple. There's two decorators. And hold on, you need to remember to work, that Python is very sensitive with spaces. So work on your spaces. I'm trying to understand how these spaces work as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day. This is where we're leaving it for now. Bye-bye.